Hey, everybody, real quick, before we get into today's episode, a deeper dive into leasing, we want to make sure you guys know about the owner's manual.
Yeah, great newsletter that goes out Sunday, Monday. It's very quick, less than 5 minute video of me teaching you something that can really help your dealership as a manager or owner. Jeff comes up with ideas and he makes me record. So Jeff's great ideas and my charismatic face telling you what you can do to make your business better, right?
So the vision for the owner's manual newsletter is to give you guys tactical advice. Like we pick out one key thing that you as an owner manager need to do in your dealership. And Luke trains a video. We have an inspirational quote that you can share with your team. And then we have an action item that you can put into practice in your dealership that week. So it's not meant to be just fluff and just the news or some pie in the sky, whatever. Like this is actionable item for you as an owner manager.
And really quick, really pithy. And Jeff, how do people find that? How do you
So you
subscribe?
can go to our website, you can go through the link in the episode, a couple different places, and just, yeah, put your email in there, subscribe to that newsletter, and then give us some feedback. Let us know.
And the website is
Theindependentdealer.com.
theindependentdealer.com. See you soon.
You are listening to the Independent Dealer Podcast with hosts Luke Godwin and Jeff Watson.
Hello and welcome to the Independent Dealer Podcast, brought to you by Buckeye Dealership Consulting. Luke, this week we have a very familiar face. Mr. Tim Lawrence is back with us. We are going to do a deeper dive into leasing. It's kind of a hot topic right now. It's like saying CPI or Trump Gate or any of these other like real cool trendy words these days. Lease here, pay here it's like it's having its heyday.
I tell you, I've never heard it more than I have at the last 4 conferences I've been to. It's all people, not all people are talking about, but a lot of people are talking about it. And Tim's here to expand on it and talk about
Tim, why is it so important or so cool? Like, why is it so hot right now? What's happening?
Yeah, I think it has to do with the market pressures because with the prices of cars increasing so much, there's not a lot more you can put on the customer to increase their payment. And so I think as independent dealers are super creative, they're trying to think, well, how can I deliver a good quality car to my customer without just jacking the payment up to something they can't afford anyway? And so leasing is a really good alternative to be able to do that and still maintain profitability.
Okay, I can get on board with that.
We need that.
So before you guys get into this, so go back to episode 193. So episode 193, we talked to Tim and we did a really good kind of surface level covering of what is leasing, why we do it, some of the structures. We cover a lot of that stuff. So I'm going to try not to rehash all those same points, even though we might have to for some of this conversation. So go back to that one. But first off, Tim, what I want to do is I want to kind of bust your nuts on this leasing thing for just a second. And I want to talk about the dirty underbelly. Who does this not work for? Who should not get into leasing? Who can just turn this podcast off right now, not waste their time, and ignore this whole situation?
Yeah, well, being a little bit of a cheerleader for leasing, that's a harder question for me to just answer. So I'll try to be objective as much as I can.
Okay, I'll fill in the blanks.
Yeah, that's right. Add the expletives. I think it comes into more of there's certain states that are more friendly to leasing and certain states that are less friendly.
Who is not friendly? Like not friendly to leasing? New York, Massachusetts, what?
Yeah, there's about 15 states that are not friendly. And what that friendliness really means is from a sales tax perspective, can you pay the sales tax over the life of the lease on the money that's collected to you, or do you have to pay it at registration? So if you have to pay it at registration, that would qualify as less friendly or unfriendly. Mm-hmm. And yes, New York, Ohio, New Jersey, Connecticut, there's about 15 states where it's less friendly just on that aspect. All the other benefits still work.
Is that the only way you classify whether a state is friendly or not is by the sales tax, Tim?
Yeah, and it really is because all the other aspects still hold true, like federal income tax benefits. You still have the collateral control to repo the vehicle with greater ease.
So there are no
Cool.
states that say, hey, I don't care if this is a lease, you still can't come take this person's car. Or there are not states where they say, I don't care that you're not the driver of the car, you were 100% liable for any damages they do as the owner of the car. There's no states have gone that crazy just yet. Like GM
Yeah.
Financial doesn't lease in a certain state or something. Like there's not one place where it's like, hey, no go, no fly.
Well, I think there's probably a couple different answers to that, not to make it murky. So I'll try to simplify this. On a state like Ohio, where the sales tax is calculated in a crazy way, it's on the sum of payments plus the residual.
Ooh.
And then you apply the sales tax and it's due up front. So it's like, that probably doesn't make sense
No.
if you're a super prime customer. And we actually have customers that are in Ohio, and we use a Hudson Cook provided lease. It's a periodic lease that makes it a little bit more like a subscription. So there is a max term for the lease, but the lessee driver can turn the vehicle in at any time voluntarily, as long as they're current with their payments and all those things. And then it is a pay-as-you-go type of transaction, to where the sales tax is only on the payments collected.
And liability is fine no matter what state you're in.
It is fine. So vicarious liability, I think, is what you're referring to. And that's the Graves Amendment in 2006 is what solidified that, to where there is a break in the liability between the driver, the lessee, and you as the owner, the lessor, so that you aren't liable. And that's why there's so much consumer leasing in general. I mean, 20, 30% on any given year is leasing. And all of those companies and rental companies would just fall apart if they were liable for that.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine, which some states look like they're going that direction, but whatever. The other thing I would say is it is not a good idea for you to get into this if you are absolutely married to your DMS, and that DMS is not DealPack or AutoMasters or a couple other little guys, right? Because I know, like Luke and I, dealing with Dealer Socket, they do not have a leasing module. From what I understand, it would not work. If I wanted to do leasing, I would have to switch my DMS either concurrently or completely switch over to make this work.
Yeah, I think that's true. There's a pain level range on if you convert. And if your dealership, there's probably two ways to look at it. If your dealership has a organizational culture of continual improvement, and we're going to do whatever it takes to take on these new, whatever it is, the objectives that you set, and it's a top down as a leadership model. Hey, we're going to look at this and get everybody on board because we see the benefits for everybody involved in the organization, that this is the way that we want to go. Then there's a different way of looking at it. Okay, changing DMSs is going to be painful. It's not going to be fun, but we have a plan in place, and here's how we're going to do it. And once we do it, we're going to be pumped. But like you said, if you don't want to change and that's the farthest thing from you, then don't change.
I believe that's with any type of change, it's got to come from the top down, and switching DMSs can be a problem. But I think you could run it concurrently, get out of all your buy here, pay here, and start your lease here, pay here, and probably it wouldn't be all that painful. And years ago, Tim, a lot of people didn't get into lease here, pay here because there was no really access to capital, and I think that's where y'all came in. And Tim's with Lease Here, Pay Here Capital. What? How has that market changed with y'all entering that ballgame?
I think it's changed quite a bit, because one of the things that we really wanted to take on was normalizing leasing and providing a lot of education around it. And because of that, we offer accounting information for accountants, and we actually see on our website, people come on all the time. We don't see who, but we see that they're downloading all sorts of information. And I think because of that, we've seen more competitors come in the market, and it's not like we're the leader in the space by number of dealers and by the transaction size, but that doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of players. We see a lot of regional players, small banks, friends and family. We see some big banks in there too. And so I think, and we see people coming in trying to scoop up our customers, which we welcome because that helps with the competition. We get more lenders in the space, and overall, it's going to benefit everybody.
Yeah, and Luke, we interviewed Joe Powell quite a long time ago, and he does his own leasing with a local lender that he gets his money from. I don't know if that's still the case, but I would say that's probably the other disqualifier for any buy here, pay here that's looking to convert over, is if their covenants, if they're heavily leveraged, to go in and either buy that portfolio out or convert those people over, you may have an issue paying it down, or I guess that could probably get a little bit sticky if you're switching from buy here, pay here to lease here, pay here, when you've got some sort of a capital provider that's got their tentacles into your business.
Yeah, actually, I think that's one of the biggest things, maybe obstacles that we run across, is somebody wants to either do both or they want to wind down their current portfolio. And we have like a purchase and wind down program to where we'll refinance your buy here, pay here portfolio and wind it down as you're ramping up your lease here, pay here portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
But it just depends on how much hair is on the deal, because if you're over advanced on your buy here, pay here portfolio, you're just sort of stuck anyway. However you're going to change lenders.
You're on a hamster wheel and didn't know it either way at that point.
Yeah.
And the biggest reason we got Tim here today is to talk about 2022 Lease Here, Pay Here Summit. It's in San Diego, which is a pretty nice place, September 16th through the 17th. Jeff and I will be there, be doing some interviews and all that. Tim, I've never been to a Lease Here, Pay Here Summit. I've been to all kind of, conventions. Can you kind of talk us through what this is and how much fun it's going to be, how much education is there?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so first, I get super pumped about it. We've been doing it for 6 years so far, so this will be our 7th. And the first 2 years, it was dealer run and led, and we just sort of hosted the facility. And then as it started to grow, we took it on, and we now host and facilitate it. It's on the smaller side because Lease Here, Pay Here is on the smaller side, and we kind of like that. So like last year, we had it was somewhere like 65, 70 attendees, which is great because then you get a little bit more interaction and one-on-one with the speakers and panelists and that sort of a thing. So like this year, we have 10 sessions over a day and a half, and 6 of those sessions are directly dealers being interviewed or dealers on panels. I think we have 15 dealers who are interacting somehow across those 6 sessions. And then we have 4 a little bit more informative. We have like an accounting session and an economic one and a couple others. But the funniest thing is, as we've added or tried to add a lot more dealers into each panel, we have so many good operators that are attending that just don't want to speak, but they enjoy being a part of the discussion. So the more interaction we can get from everybody, the more it just is valuable to everybody who attends. And of course, as you guys know, some of the best stuff happens in between sessions when you're grabbing cocktails and out to the couple dinners that we do.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. That's, of course, Jeff and I enjoy that probably more than any of it. And it's going to be interesting for me to never really, talk that much about Lease Here, Pay Here, to go and just listen. I can't wait to learn. Jeff, you're in love with Lease Here, Pay Here, so it's going to be fun for you, I know.
Yeah, I definitely look forward to it. And like Luke said, September 16th, 17th in San Diego. I mean, what a better time to be in San Diego, but end of September. Yeah, it's great.
Do you, Tim, Lease Here, Pay Here is, like we've already discussed, is different. You talk to Lease Here, Pay Here dealers every day. Do you see them having the same inventory issues that regular car salespeople are having right now, or does being the Lease Here, Pay Here side insulate you from that a little bit?
It depends on the ACV that you acquire in your inventory. So if we have a lot of dealers that go after higher ACVs, like 10 to 12,000, and so those are a little bit easier to come by. But in general, we've seen the same struggles as everybody else because there's just less inventory available. And every call, we do pretty frequent calls with our customers, and we get the same story. There's supply chain issues and service center issues and getting inventory. Customers are there, but those are probably the biggest issues.
Yeah, I would assume that so much of the Lease Here, Pay Here inventory were off rental cars downstream, and those dried up, as we all know, the last 2 years. So I could see that being the same problem. Do most Lease Here, Pay Here stores have like a full service center where they change oil for the customers and things like that?
I would say the most successful ones that have the most accounts do, and I think that's probably similar with Buy Here, Pay Here. There is an advantage to getting lease inventory back. So you don't have to acquire as much inventory if you have leases that started out as a higher ACV and they're coming back full term, and then you're going to put them out again for, let's say, 24 months on the second turn. So there is that advantage. But I think in this day and age in general, working towards having a successful service center for your operation is extremely beneficial, especially for leasing. I would say probably half of our dealers have their own service center. We see a lot of outsourcing.
I never thought about this. So you said that one thing about having to acquire less inventory. Is Lease Here, Pay Here less cash intensive than Buy Here, Pay Here?
I think super good question, Luke. I'm going to answer this in two different ways because aside from, let's just say, sales tax, federal income tax stuff aside, let's put that on the shelf. If you go through the transaction, it really is just another financing tool for the customer. So if all things are created equal, you're using the same ACV and the same price point, in the end, it's probably about the same. And we've had CPAs argue one way and CPAs argue the other way. And of course, we want to say, oh, leasing on just that transaction basis is 100% better. It's probably about the same. Now you add in the sales tax benefits if you're in a pay-as-you-go state. And just like Luke, you said in the Buy Here, Pay Here United conference on down payments, if you get more down payment money every month, that operating cash flow in your business is so impactful. And so if same side on the sales tax, if you have that, awesome, that helps a ton. If the federal income tax depreciation, or if you're going to access bonus depreciation like the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act allows you to do, it is a game changer because you're setting up offsetting any federal tax income liability, and then you are potentially setting up NOL carry forwards for the future to where you don't have to pay income tax going forward. And that can keep going for a long period of time. Probably the last two that come to mind as not really being tangible cash items, but making an impact on your business is if it takes you longer to repo a car on a Buy Here, Pay Here transaction, and you can do it quicker on Lease Here, Pay Here. I mean, think about the value of that vehicle just losing, even if it's 30 days worth or 15 days worth, that's longer than Lease Here, Pay Here. That's value that's losing in your business. And then the last one is you don't have to have an RFC. So that whole just extra admin setup and probably just the brain power you have to use, just to try to understand the health of your business isn't there.
Not to mention,
so
in
my opinion,
for 2 tax returns every year. Ridiculous.
Right.
Like highway robbery.
Exactly.
So it makes a lot. What I'm saying, Luke, is I argue that you could do this. You could have the same leasing philosophy with a Buy Here, Pay Here car, right? It's like, sure, it's just an early turn in. You had a 36-month term. You can turn it in at 24, right? And whether I call it a residual or whether I call it forgiving your negative equity and flipping you into another car, I can call it whatever I want at that point, and I can recontract you and get you going again. But what I feel like I see in leasing is, you can charge a lease initiation fee, which is like just pulling some random number out of the sky because I want to charge you money to start a lease. You know what I'm saying? I can't charge you a Buy Here, Pay Here initiation fee. That's illegal. right? That's payment packing, that's hidden finance charges. I can charge a doc fee, but guess what? So can leasing. They can charge a separate doc fee. So the lease initiation fee is pretty darn cool. Obviously, the tax savings from a sales tax standpoint, if you're in the right state. But then, like you talked about, the depreciation and the bonus depreciation on your asset, on your portfolio
That's huge.
I mean, I can take repo losses, but that's not anywhere near that. And repo losses are, sometimes those are real cash losses if my cash on the street is still too heavy. So that's pretty ridiculous, because we all know what we pay in income tax each year. I mean, it's astronomical. And if I could have an extra 20% or whatever, 100% bonus depreciation, it's crazy.
And Tim, we Buckeye are great sponsors of the podcast. They actually introduced us a long time ago. And do reinsurance work the same in a Lease Here, Pay Here program?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of cool. So first, shout out to Sean Peterson, who made the intro to us.
Sure.
Last year. He was a speaker at our conference. So thanks again, Sean. In your rent charge, your money factor, you can include any reinsurance products as long as it's itemized on your lease as part of the rent charge. And so you can either itemize it as in two different ways on your lease. You can itemize it as, okay, this is what it costs and it's being added to the contract, or you can itemize it as zero under your rent charge, and you're just disclosing that this is part of what is being charged to you as rent. And so if you do it that way, you can add any of your reinsurance products to 100% of your customers because it's part of your program. Like we do a service contract for everybody, and we do CPI and we do GAAP or whatever it is that you're electing to add to your program. And then it's there, it's disclosed, and if they don't want to access your program, then they don't.
And if you did the same thing on Buy Here, Pay Here, you'd get in big trouble because your penetration would be too high on those products and they'd call it illegal.
Yeah.
Right, because those are considered aftermarket or ancillary products, and in this circumstance, they're not. They're part of your lease program.
Very neat. You're starting to sway me. I'm starting to come over. Oh, I don't want to start over though. Gosh almighty, I don't want to start over.
Talk to him about that then, Tim, because I know there's going to be a session at the convention, at the summit, about that, buying a Buy Here, Pay Here and converting to a Lease Here, Pay Here. Do you have any more practical tips for someone like Luke that might be dancing on the fence and saying, okay, do I switch over? Do I not? And that's why I led this whole discussion with, who is this not good for?
Right.
There might be some deal breakers where you're like, okay, cool, I don't even want to go down this road because I'm not switching DMSs. And that's probably where I'm at. Honestly, if my DMS was friendly to leases, it would be so much easier to be like, okay, we're just structuring these differently. And I'm going to hold the paper in my dealership's name and not sell it to my RFC. And maybe I do, my high end stuff gets leased and my low end stuff gets Buy Here, Pay Here, and I have $1 that cuts off. And it would make complete sense to do both or whatever, slowly transition over if my DMS was friendly. And I could look at them both in the same place and be like, all right, smooth transition. It just really doesn't matter. But since it is not, that to me is like, I just can't handle the brain damage of converting to DMS again. It's just not where I'm at. Lazy, old, whatever it is. What would you say to someone like Luke and I?
Well, I would say that first come to the summit so you can get firsthand experience with some of the dealers who have done it, because me saying it just because of the company I work for is probably going to be swayed, but you can hear directly from somebody else, and then you can ask them on the side, hey, I know you said this while you were being interviewed, but what's the real deal? Where did it hurt you the most?
Mm-hmm.
But I think but to answer the question, I think you look at what are the similarities in my business that don't have to have any impact of change, which is a lot. I mean, it's the same customer, you're collecting the same financing aspects of it, you're repoing. There's really just can I handle the DMS change? What do I need to do to prep my organization? I need to do a little bit of sales training so that my salespeople understand hey, this is a lease, Mr. Customer, and this is an alternate path to ownership. You're test driving this for 36 months or 42 months, and then you can decide if you want to buy it or not. So you're disclosing all those things up front, and then make sure that your advertising is spot on, which is not a big scare. It's really easy to make sure your advertising is compliant. And then the last thing is, hey, does my accountant get it? Do they understand leasing? Or do they want to learn leasing so that I can get those good tax benefits? If like those three categories seem like they're worth tackling, then you make the plan and you come up with the objectives and the tasks and who owns them and the timing and the budget for them, and then you do the plan.
And that's that actual session is Saturday from 9 a.m. to 9:45, right after you speak, Tim. And it's buying a Buy Here, Pay Here dealership to convert to Lease Here, Pay Here. I'm going to be there in that one because I want to check it out. I need to learn.
So Tim, from a practical, and this might be hard without really getting into the numbers, but say Luke has a $5 million portfolio, right? If he could instantly convert those all over to leases, let's say this year, whatever, not possible. But if it happens this year, they all get converted to leases. You're telling me that he could then, in his taxes at the end of the year, he can take a bonus depreciation for all $5 million in his lease portfolio, depreciate those to zero in year one, and then carry that $5 million loss forward against all of his income for the next, I don't know, how much do you make, Luke? Probably carry you around till you're 100. It might have lasted 2 years.
It sounds like maybe a year, maybe a year.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. That's cover you 6 months.
But on top of that, he's also super funding his reinsurance company, which is an expense item, right? Yeah. So he's super funding his reinsurance company. That's on steroids. And then he's taking this $5 million net loss or depreciation that's carrying over, correct?
Yes, although the depreciation is on the cost of the vehicle. So let's say you buy a vehicle for $10,000.
He's actually into it $3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. So he's only depreciating.
And so then he depreciates the $3 million.
So that'll only get him like 6 months, I guess.
Right. Exactly. And that $3 million goes against any income tax that he would potentially have to pay because it's an expense. It'll probably create a loss that then is carried forward. So any future year is still going to go against that expense after that tax year. Mm-hmm. So let's say he was going to have $500,000 in net income from this year, then he would have $2.5 million to apply for the future years, however much he's going to use that up. But next year he's going to add more also because he's also buying inventory and he's going to apply it. And actually, the cool thing about having a reinsurance company is that you then have you have income that's going to come in later, and you can decide when that's going to come in. So if you want to bring that in at a time where you know you're not going to pay taxes anyway, then great, you can bring that in because you're already offsetting it. Or if you want to wait till a time later on down the road, then that makes sense too. So it's really a good fit for accessing with bonus depreciation.
So back to that example, if Luke was going to have say he had a $500,000 net operating income for the year, he can apply his $3 million depreciation towards it. So he's wiping out the $500,000, which he would have. He's probably in the 40 or 50% tax bracket. I don't know what they do there in South Carolina combined. He probably would have had a $200,000 or $300,000, say a $200,000 tax bill that is now gone, right? Like it's not kicked down the road. Is he deferring it? Does he eventually have to recapture that?
Yeah, so it's the way that depreciation works in general. So if you just depreciated 100% of the cost of the vehicle, mm-hmm. Well, at some point you're going to either sell it or wholesale it, right? Mm. And so let's say of that $10,000 vehicle that you bought and fully depreciated for that year, in 5 years from now, it's worth $1,500 and you're gonna wholesale it. So at that point, that $1,500 is now income to you that you would have to pay the income tax on. And so you're basically deferring it out, but it's great because as you defer it out, the vehicles are losing value and that depreciation is going away, just like the property that you own. That depreciation is helping you out over time. But if you sold the property because you depreciated too much, you would have to pay a little bit.
Yeah, but the problem with properties is they go up. So your depreciated and your basis is still where it was, and your depreciation. So then you're recapturing everything above that when you sell it for a profit. But when you sell a car and it's a $500 pile of scrap metal that you kick out the back, it's not going the other. You know what I'm saying? It's not going the other way. It's being.
I mean, it sounds too good to be true, honestly.
Yeah, well, that's why it makes sense, because you want the bonus depreciation on a vehicle that's not going to grow in value, or on an asset.
Right.
So that later on it's going to be the amount. If you can't see me, listeners, I'm just holding up like an inch high, is about what you'll have to pay later on.
So if Luke could save himself $200,000 this year, next year, and the year after by switching over to leasing, that seems like enough money to go through the painful process of swapping DMSs.
So our owner, what he used to capitalize this company was he sold his previous company, Credit Union Leasing of America, to Westlake Financial Services, and it was a leasing company where he always had depreciation, and to him it is just crazy that dealers aren't jumping on this constantly with the bonus depreciation. Like, he walks around our office and is in shock for years.
See guys like us.
Specifically you, Jeff, not so much you, Luke.
So, personal note, have you contacted Dealer Socket and asked them to add a leasing module?
We have not contacted Dealer Socket. We have tried to work with other dealer DMS systems to say, hey, can we work with you to build a module? Or can we, somehow incorporate in an independent lease module to yours? And so far we've had no's and no's and interest and no's and interest. It sort of varies.
You said AMS has it, or?
Yeah, AutoMaster Systems. And I think this is kind of a cool thing. So I was at the DPG that you guys were at early in January, and AMS is a really good partner of theirs, and they're helping with DPG. Well, what a great way if you want to access the benefits of getting the live offering that DPG does for their performance groups. Then that's a cool way, because you're already looking towards AMS, and might as well add in Lease Here, Pay Here if you're looking at converting as one of the motivators.
For sure. Does DPG have a Lease Here, Pay Here group yet?
I don't think they do. And so in terms of 20 groups, I think, it's cool if you can get in with all Lease Here, Pay Here 20 group. I know Bill Elizondo has one through NIADA. And but in general, I don't think it's necessary for you, because there's so many similarities that you don't necessarily need to have, I need to be in a 20 group. It's more important that you're with like-minded, good operators who are challenging you in your operation versus the financing product.
Yeah. So being in a group with other buy here, pay here dealers works anyway. So
totally.
One thing we didn't cover in the last episode, and again, episode 193, if you guys want any more detail on the leasing thing, is we talked about GPSs. And so we can plug our sponsor Pastime at the same point of using a GPS in my Lease Here car. So if I've got my Pastime GPS, and I'm under the impression, like right now I use wireless because it's just so much easier to get it in, get it out. Like, I don't know how long they're going to have it, if it's a cash deal, blah, blah, blah. But if I know this car is going to be in my portfolio for 5 years and it's going to be out on 2 or 3 leases cycles, I mean, I could put in a hardwired ignition interrupt Pastime GPS. Is it illegal for me to shut off someone's ignition in a lease situation? Is it the same rules apply where I got to give them notice?
Yeah, same rules in terms of the state, whatever the state laws are for that. And We have dealers who use a lot of those pastime remote battery operated ones, and they just put it in another spot when it comes back for the second turn. And it's just a note in their DMS for that turn. Just it's just like if you're a buy here, pay here dealer and you get the vehicle back on a repo and you're going to put it out again. What do? You probably just slip one in close to the same spot or a new spot.
Yeah. I could see the benefit of just being like, all right, I'm going back to hardwired because I know these cars are going to be with me for a very long time, or at least that's my goal. I don't really want someone paying out the lease or buying the residual. I want to get them into another car if they're a good customer. So anyways, I could see that being a benefit. And to close out, Tim, I want to ask you this. Dollar-wise, who's the largest lease here, pay here dealer you've seen? Just out of curiosity.
Well, yeah.
Are we talking like
not
10 million, 50 million, 100 million? Like, are these guys running massive lease here, pay here operations?
Yeah, I know of two that are 100 million operations and receivables. Wow. And I don't want to say their names because I know I have the information because I have it.
Yeah.
So
we don't need a who. I'm just curious. It's not like a boutique mom and pop like I run leasing out of a cornfield and like my friends and family. Like this is like some of the smartest, largest operators are like all in on leasing.
100% all in. I mean, we see $20 million portfolios, $50 million portfolios. For these guys, they all do the same thing as our owner. They walk around and they're like, I am totally thrilled that a bunch of buy here, pay here dealers don't see this.
Well, if you've ever met Nick Marcosian, that is exactly how he works,
right? Yeah.
How many? What's the largest
good measure?
What's the largest defactor? Like who have you seen like move over to that side as far as like trans whatever?
Yeah, over the last 3 years, we saw somebody convert over, and this took time to do it, but we saw let's see. You can do the math right. Probably 50 million in lease receivables buy here, pay here receivables convert over for one dealership.
Jeez, that is no small cookie. And I guess Tracy Myers is doing the same thing right now. We talked to him a couple episodes ago, and he's
I think he's wanting to. Yeah. Very neat. Well,
Tim, anything else for the listeners?
Tim, thank you. Yeah.
They know how to get a hold of you. They know the website.
Yeah, the website's simple, lhph.com. So you can look at the summit information, and then we have a bunch of information. You can just get lost for a long time.
Well, cool. Thank you, Tim. And we look forward to seeing you in San Diego. And everybody out there, this isn't a conference just if you're a lease here, pay here. This is for anybody who's even interested in it. And you'll probably learn something either way. So there are rooms open, I'm sure, and there's registration still available. So come check us out, see us, and see Tim.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Dealers helping dealers. Please leave us a review and subscribe. The Independent Dealer Podcast.